When there is a name you're frantically striving for, neither sleep nor food nor wounds can distract you from resolute steps, from tension that doesn't let go, granting either a fresh start or death. A great battle in which a small group of people, men, women and children, ready to die but not surrender to the enemy, climbed the mountain as a last hope and merged with it into one whole. Taking a journey to the significant historic sites of Dagestan, tourists realize that Muslims all over the world read those stories with their breath held. To reach the tower, we are going through a long tunnel that separates sub-mountain Dagestan from the central, mountainous region. The tunnel makes a kind of a gate separating a top world from the bottom one, and many people certainly can see that after exiting the tunnel, the sun shines brighter and the sky is always blue, regardless of how grey it looked before they entered the tunnel. We are making our way to the landmarks that are connected to the events that took place at Akhoulgo. Akhoulgo is the name of the mountain, but for more than 180 years it's also the name of the battle that took place there.
Old and New Akhoulgo, as they are called among the people. Today we will visit the most significant places along this route. We will visit the Gimri Tower, Buzna Sanuh, they call it the Ancestors' Way, and finally the mountain Akhoulgo itself.
Usman Nagomedov doesn't only study history from the point of the Caucasian War, but also other notable landmarks and famous people of Dagestan. Together with the NNT camera crew, we are approaching the Gimri Tower. It is the place where the assault of the village Gimri came to an end. The survivors hid in the tall tower, which the Tsar troops surrounded in several rows. We reached our first destination, the first landmark, a trace of the Caucasian War, the tower. By the way, this tower is holding a secret in itself.
Yes, it's real basement of that construction. Many people confuse it with that building. It's a symbolic construction. This is the place from where IMAM SHAMIL made his jump.
And now an important fact. These rocks are the part of history. A century later we have an opportunity to touch real history. These rocks keep the memory of that battle.
As the descendants of Imam Ghazi Muhammad from his aunt's side, direct descendants in 5th and 6th generations, say that books state that Imam Ghazi Muhammad jumped on the bayonets, but he recalled that here was a door, and from that door he rushed towards the enemies with a saber in his hand. Fighting, he reached that place where you can see the flags and banners, where there is a tombstone. He died at that place. Imam Shamil asked whether Imam Ghazi Muhammad was alive, and when he was informed of Ghazi Muhammad's death, he pronounced the words of the prayer, rolled up his sleeves, ran up and jumped out. When he did it, he flew over the bayonets. He landed at that place where you can see those stones. Muhyiddin from the village Gimri jumped after him. Afterwards, one of the soldiers, impressed by such a long jump, started measuring it with bayonets. And he counted 12 bayonets. A bayonet is a rifle which is 1 meter long, and a bayonet itself that is 20 centimeters long. And you can multiply it 12 yourselves. On the rock there was a drawing which the soldiers made, being surprised by the jump.
Having landed, Imam Shamil rushed into the battle alone against dozens of soldiers who were attacking him. That was the moment when he was wounded by a bayonet. He slashed the soldier who had wounded him on spot with a deep wound on his shoulder to the whistle of the bullets. He disappeared in the dark of the night. Imam Shamil had 37 wounds. At the place where the Gimri Tower is, both old and new ones, there were buried renowned highlanders and theologians, people who were close to Imam Shamil. People stop here to pray to God with an innermost entreaty, and the old people say that the prayers addressed from these places are always fulfilled. With time, this place turned into a great staging point for travelers. There is a place for those who want to perform wudu and pray. By the way, we also performed our afternoon prayer here. And a little further from here there is a shop where they make bread, pastry and cheese. And by the way, an important aspect of it is that it belongs to direct descendants of Imam Ghazi Muhammad. I hope that we will have an opportunity to talk to them today. A descendant of Imam Ghazi Muhammad in the 6th generation, with the hair great by age, this old man is a keeper of multiple stories, passed down from the generation to generation. Now he tells them to his grandchildren. Not only to grandchildren, but to all the people who don't know what events took place here. Not only our grandfathers, but even our great-grandfathers from Gimri told us about the events that took place here, where the first Imam of Dagestan and Chechnya, Ghazi Muhammad, died. Imam Shamil was here as well, along with 14 murids. To follow the steps of the first Imam of Dagestan and to be a descendant of Imam Ghazi Muhammad, one has to be a man of great honor. One has to be worthy of Imam Ghazi Muhammad. A lot of people visit these places, not only our Dagestani people, but people from other countries too. I tell the stories about our ancestors to all of them. It is the place where Imam Shamil made his jump, the place where, alone with a saber in his hand, the first Imam of Dagestan and Chechnya rushed towards the enemies and died, where the people fighting side to side with Imam Shamil are buried. All of that is 1 hour drive away from Makhachkala, which means that this destination is easily accessible for many of us, but at the same time how significant it is in its historic and spiritual value. We are leaving the first stopping place on our journey and are approaching 2 mountains, old and new Akhoulgo. Leaving behind the village Eshilta burned down by the Tsar troops, Imam made the decision. For our stay, we are going to choose the place in the mountains that is hard to get to, and fight against them. Only Akhoulgo appeared to be the place that they needed. They made caves in the rocks, dug trenches, cut down and sawed up a lot of trees. They pulled logs to Akhoulgo. Women, children and elderly people, everyone dragged stones up the hill in wicker baskets to throw them at the enemies later. Women prepared gunpowder for the defender of Akhoulgo. Nearby the underground mosque, they dug a reservoir for water. People stocked up on flour, oat flour and dried meat, the stock sufficient for a month. We went up the mountain where there is a memorial named Akhoulgo. The mountains themselves, old and new Akhoulgo, are over there. This is old Akhoulgo, this is new Akhoulgo. One of them has an inscription on it. People don't climb that mountain because it's the place, the ground of which has the bodies of Imam Shamil's murids who died in the battle. That's why it's a sign of disrespect to climb the mountain that carries in itself the bodies of the deceased.
Between old and new Akhoulgo there was built a wooden bridge, and also there was a cable road. At first they wanted to fortify old Akhoulgo, but then the elderly people told Imam that there wouldn't have been enough space. Not everything would fit into it, and it will be better to move everything to new Akhoulgo. It was also fortified along with the Sruhai tower. Apparently it was Sruhai who was responsible for the construction of the tower, and it was named after him. The enemy hadn't been able to take the Sruhai tower for a month, until all of them, 100 of defenders, died. 92 or 93 of them died. 7 of wounded defenders left the tower. They weren't able to take it until there were no defenders left to guard it. It took them a month to take the tower, and only after they destroyed it to the ground with the cannons, they were able to storm Akhoulgo. The fortified mountain guarded the access to Akhoulgo.
Highlanders fiercely defended Akhoulgo. The number of women, children and the elderly among them prevailed the number of male warriors. But the strength of each of them, even the children who fought next to men, seemed to grow 10 times greater. It is easier to take the crescent of the sky than from the minaret of Akhoulgo. Those were the words pronounced by the Tsar generals during their hopeless attempts to take Akhoulgo, an impregnable mountain with annealed highlanders. The warriors wouldn't let the soldiers come close to the fortified positions on the hill. Despite the ongoing battle and Akhoulgo, the Adan, the call for prayer, was heard for every prayer. On the same day, 7 men stood tall and called for a prayer. All of them were killed by the Tsar shooters. On Akhoulgo, the number of the living grew smaller and the number of the dead grew larger. It was then when General Grabbe proposed an armistice and asked for Imam Shamil's son as a collateral.
Imam said, "I don't trust them." Then, on the 16th, the delegation arrived again and said, "If you don't give us Jamaluddin as a collateral, we will start a fire." Imam repeated that he didn't trust them. Then his fellow warriors, Murids, started to say that maybe the Tsar soldiers would leave and would keep their word. And then, seeing their state, Imam agreed. He doubted it, and his doubt was justified. Yunus took Imam's son to the opponents on the 16th, and after that they called a truce for 4 days.
The battle that lasted 80 days exhausted those few defenders of the tower that were able to survive. The ratio of power was 1 to 100. There was a number of examples of heroism during the battle. One of them was Hiri Yasul Alibek. He kept fighting even after having a wound in his arm. When the bones of his forearm were crushed and the arm was hanging on the tendons only, he was holding his saber in his good arm and wouldn't stop fighting. The hanging arm started getting into his way, and having cut it off with a strike of his saber, he continued fighting. When he died, his arm was brought to his mother and she said, "Praise be to Allah that my son died in a battle." They sacrificed everything, their sons and their lives, and Imam Shamil made sacrifices too, even if he had known a bitter taste of treachery, the words and promises of the enemy that weren't kept. This is the Esheltinka River, and this is a stone on which Imam Shamil passed his son and Naib Yunus from Cherkey to a Tsar general. As one of the conditions of the armistice, a guarantee of peace, an 8-year-old boy who didn't ask to go back to his parents because he realized how important the armistice was to the Highlanders exhausted by the ongoing battle. Spoiled by the comforts of our times, we wouldn't be able to understand all the hardship that didn't seem unbearable to them in those times. Several corn seeds a day, a hope for the victory, treachery of the enemy and forced armistice, the price of which was a dear child, whom Imam Shamil gave to the enemy as a collateral. Akhoulgo will be remembered even 100 years from now. Those who will come after the current descendants of those who remember will tell the stories to their children, and they to theirs. Even rocks that stand still at the same place will tell the story of Akhoulgo.